Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3733BN. Today's date is September 17th, 2025, and the title of the episode is Report, Deep State Planning a False Flag to Push War, Confirmed Soros Funding Domestic Terrorists. Let's talk about our health. A 2025 survey found that over half of U.S. adults are concerned about how their skin is aging, and 40% fixate on random wrinkles or dark spots. If that sounds like you're not alone, more and more people are noticing visible changes in their skin far earlier than expected. This is why I use my secret anti-aging weapon, and I'm obsessed with the changes I've noticed in my skin. It provides my skin with 5 must-have types of premium collagen needed to reduce wrinkles. Since taking it, I've experienced smoother skin, more elasticity, fewer fine lines, and more youthful glow. Plus, it mixes smoothly with my morning coffee or tea with no taste or clumps. Be sure to grab a bag of Ageless Multi-Collagen now while it's 51% off only at healthwithx22.com and help take years off the clock. Plus, by ordering now, you're also guaranteed to get free VIP live health and fitness coaching for life, a free ebook titled 14 Foods for Amazing Skin, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee, and free shipping. Once again, that website is healthwithx22.com, or just click the link in the description. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech, fake news, the puppet masters, you can see that as evidence comes out about their treasonous acts and how they are traitors to this country. We could see that with George Soros. And yes, all those individuals that were pushing Russia, all the impeachment trials, the overthrow of the United States government, the push of COVID, you name it, the people now are starting to figure it out. And the people, they're questioning everything. And what's very interesting is that during Congress today, we had the head of CDC that was fired, and she's doing a terrible job defending herself. And basically, you could see that she is completely in line with the pharmaceutical companies. And we had Kash Patel. He was sitting there once again in front of Congress. And basically, he destroyed the D's. So basically, when you start to step back and you start to take a look, you can see what is happening now. The D's, they're losing control. The D's do not have the leverage. The D's are struggling right now because we have people in place right now that are calling all of these people out on what they have done in the past. And basically, they can't actually defend themselves, because when Kash Patel is sitting there and they're saying that, oh, he's a failure as an FBI director, all he has to do is rattle off the stats. That's exactly what he did. And as he rattles off the stats and says, okay, let's look at what Christopher Wray has done. Let's look at what Comey has done. Let's look back in time what any of these people done. Have they have done as much as I have since I came into office? And the answer is no. And when you look at the Epstein information, and you could definitely tell the D's, they wanted their information out there so badly that they're now struggling because it never got out into the public light. And this is what they really wanted. And every day that passes, there's more and more proof that shows that Trump was not involved in any of this. And they're pissed off. They're angry. And they're angry that Kash knows everything that they have done. He knew it all the way back when he was working with Devin Nunes, and now he knows it completely. And this is why they're so panicked. They see the writing on the wall. They see what's going to happen, and they're screwed. And what's going to happen is everything that we have experienced since Trump came down that escalator, it's going to be shown to the American public that these people are responsible for all of it. Which means they're going to have to try to distract all of this. They're going to have to try to push something big enough to distract everything that's going to come out against them. And what's very interesting, and this is coming from a Ukrainian reporter, where they're saying that the deep state is planning a false flag in Moldova to push war. So basically, I think what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to blame it on Russia, and they're going to make it a very big thing. It's almost like when you look back in time, how every single war started, like World War I, World War II. It seems like they're setting it up right now. Now, she's calling all of this out. She's saying, President Trump, you need to know about this, which I think Trump, he knows the deep state players. They are definitely planning a false flag. I think he knows exactly that they're not going to want peace, because if they truly wanted peace, they would have had peace a long time ago. So at this point in time, they do not want peace. Now, of course, they can't come out and say, hey, listen, we want war. We really don't want peace. They have to look like they want peace. And then there has to be some type of an event where they say, holy crap, we can't have peace right now. Russia just attacked. Look what they just did. And it looks like this is what they're going to try to do. Now, I do believe that this is going to fail. I think Trump and the Patriots, they know the playbook. They know from the 16-year plan that they're going to try to start World War III, and it's definitely not going to work. And the other thing that's very interesting, and it looks like it's no longer a conspiracy, which I think we all knew it wasn't a conspiracy, that now it seems that it is confirmed that Soros, he's been funding domestic terrorists, and he's been funneling money to all these different terrorist groups. When I say terrorist groups, I'm not even talking about Al-Qaeda. I'm not talking about ISIS. I'm talking about the terrorist groups that are here in the United States and in other countries. He's been funding Antifa. He's been funding other groups. And now all this information is coming out. And actually, when you think about the shooting of Charlie Kirk and you think about what has happened here, think about it. They started to clean up the site. Now, that wasn't driven by the FBI. All of a sudden, people came in and they started to tear down all the different things, the cameras, the stage, the tables. This was not driven by Kash Patel. This was driven by others, which is very, very interesting, because if you look at the time when they tried to assassinate Trump the first time, all of a sudden they got on the roof and they started to spray everything down. Plus, the text messages from the shooter, they don't make any sense. This doesn't sound like a 22-year-old individual. A 22-year-old individual doesn't say squad car or my old man. This is not how they text. This sounds like it's someone much, much older. So I do believe this might even been his handler that has been texting this information out. Plus, the entire timeline doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So that is very, very interesting. Do I think there's a cover-up? No. Do I think information will be coming out about who's behind this? Because again, they're investigating other groups. They're investigating other Democrats. And this is being done on purpose. Because once again, they need to dive deep into who is behind all this and track the money, track who's behind it. And I do believe this will give them some time to do this. But we're going to go through all of this a little bit later in this report. But let's start off with the D's, because they're trying to convince everyone that the shooter was MAGA. Well, the shooter is not MAGA whatsoever. I think that's being proven right now. And I think people understand that this individual hated Charlie Kirk, hated everything that he believed in, and he was part of the trans community. And think about all the D's and the fake news, the governors, you name it, when they are all out there calling Trump Hitler, calling him a fascist, saying the MAGA people are fascists. They're the ones who actually created this atmosphere. And what's very interesting is that Governor Pritzker, he's claiming that he never called Trump and Republicans Nazis. But when you look at what he actually said, he pretty much said it in a roundabout way. He didn't say, oh, Trump is a Nazi, but he said it in a way that he was calling him a Nazi. So this is what he said. On February 28, 2025, in Appearance of the View, Pritzker said that Trump has been tearing down constitutional democracy in the same way that Adolf Hitler did during Nazi Germany. I don't know how else to interpret this, but it does sound like he's saying that Trump is Hitler and he's using the same methods as Hitler. He also repeatedly stated that Trump administration's supposedly dismantling of a constitutional republic mirrored Nazi Germany. So when you start to look at this, you could see that, yeah, he was pretty much saying that Trump was a Nazi. In a tweet on X, he said, the way Donald Trump praises, romanticizes Hitler is unhinged, disturbing, and disqualifying. He's a dictator in waiting. We know exactly what he'll do if he's in power again. It cannot happen. This was October 23rd, 2024. So once again, Trump is not Hitler. He doesn't believe in Hitler. And you can see that these individuals, they're actually talking about themselves. They're projecting who they truly are. Think about what they have been trying to do. And that, when you really look at it, compares to Nazi Germany, compares to Hitler. And what's very interesting, Fetterman of the Democratic Party, and I don't know what medication he's taking because he's done like a 180. He is saying, listen, this is getting out of hand. This is a little bit ridiculous. His party should not be making Hitler comparisons because he says it will incite somebody to say, well, now I feel like I have to stop that and take them out. And he's absolutely right. That's what this was all about. He just pretty much summed it all up. And he's telling his party to back off on all of this. Now, do you think they're going to back off? No, because right now they're panicking. Right now they're in trouble because, again, the people of this country, they're watching Trump and they're saying, okay, he hasn't done anything like Hitler. He's not a fascist. He's following the Constitution. He's following the rule of law. And we voted him in as president, and he's doing exactly what we want him to do. He's taking back America. And the people now, they see this very, very clearly. Remember, as of right now, the fake news, the D's, a lot of the CEO of the corporations and stuff, they were all part of the propaganda system to stop Trump. Now Trump, that since he's in the White House, some of these individuals, they have to go along with him. Does that mean they're all for Trump? No, that means if he's gone, they'll just go back to what they were doing. But they're a very, very small minority right now. And they're getting smaller and smaller by the day. And they understand this because you have to remember, once the people are awake, you can't put them back to sleep. Once they start thinking logically, they start to ask a lot of questions. And this is a major, major problem for the deep state players. But when you look at all the different social media outlets, you could see that they've been assisting certain individuals to carry out certain acts, like the individual that shot Trump. So right now, the CEOs of Discord, Steam, Twitch, Reddit, they have been requested to testify before Congress on political radicalization on their platforms after Charlie Kirk's assassination. And we've seen this before if we go back a little bit in time. We've seen it on Instagram. We've seen it on Facebook. We've seen it on YouTube. And now all they did was now they switched to Discord, Steam, Twitch, and Reddit. And now they're calling them all in. And they're going to have to answer some questions now. Are they going to tell the truth? No, but you want to get this information on the record. So later on, when you find out the real information, you can go back and say, hey, you lied to us. And this is what's happening to the deep state players right now. All these people that are testifying, basically they're saying, did you lie now or did you lie before? So it's actually catching them in their lies. And remember, they use this against we the people. Think about that for a second. But remember the Armed Queers SLC? Well, it looks like Representative Anna Paulina Luna, she is now saying they are under FBI investigation as an extended network related to Charlie's killer. The founder of Armed Queers SLC is also an organizer for the PSL, which is funded by Neville Singham and the Chinese Communist Party. Why did Armed Queer SLC delete their Instagram after Charlie was murdered? Why is Neville Singham affiliated with the radical extremist group that may have ties to Charlie Kirk's assassin? Those are very, very good questions. Bad Hombre responded to this and said, before Democrats try to gaslight you by saying they have no idea who the founder of the domestic terrorist organization is, Ermiah Fanayan was on the Utah State Democratic Committee payroll, which is very, very interesting. So this is getting stranger and stranger as we move forward. But I think we all know that the deep state players, they were definitely behind all this. And we could see that this was a coordinated operation. And what's very interesting is that we're starting to see the text messages from Robinson and the roommate, and a lot of the information doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't sound like a 22-year-old, because when you look at the 22-year-olds today, or even younger, they abbreviate when they text, and I don't think any 22-year-old says, hey, my old man, or a squad car. That sounds like someone that might be in their 60s or 50s, 60s, around that age, that might be saying that. But Murray, he put this out on X and he says, I try not to be a conspiracy theorist, but I have really a hard time believing in a short text exchange from the alleged shooter. He says, makes his confession, confirms location of the weapon, confirms the type of weapon, confirms it was wrapped in a towel, confirms his motive, exonerates the decoy, George Zinn, admits to the bullet engravings, confirms the wardrobe change, confirms how long he's been planning it, discloses the existence and location of a now destroyed pre-written confession note, randomly tells his boyfriend that his dad is diehard MAGA, as if he wouldn't already know given the nature of their relationship, and is worried about his grandpa being upset if he doesn't come home with the rifle, not the fact that he just used it to commit murder. Not to mention a 22-year-old terminally online Zoomer using phrases like squad car, drop point, swept the area, my vehicle, till I died of old age, my old man. I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. And you know what? It doesn't make any sense. It definitely sounds like his handler, he was the one, or she was the one, probably a he, was talking on Discord. It just, something does not make sense. And this is not how a 22-year-old actually speaks. And actually, 22-year-olds who are texting or whatever, normally they use abbreviations. And this does not fit whatsoever. And it doesn't make any sense. And we go back to, hey, wait a minute. Why did he dismantle the rifle, put it in his bag, then throw it in the woods? It doesn't make any sense. Why would you do something like that? And first of all, leave the screwdriver with your fingerprints on it, and then leave it in the woods, and then all of a sudden it's magically put back together. Something doesn't make sense. And it seems like as they probe all these different groups, which I do believe is going to be the key to all of this, as they probe all these groups, they're going to find out who actually wrote the messages, who was involved, and who actually was involved in the rifle and the engraving. Because for some reason, I do not believe that it was this individual, because I do believe this was a coordinated operation, just like the first assassin who tried to kill Trump. That was a coordinated operation by the deep state players. But think about it. It could be so many different groups, but I do believe it's going to be made up of those individuals that Trump is now coming after, not him himself, but you can see there's a lot of investigations going. He's stopping the funding to Ukraine. He's stopping the war. The deep state players don't want the war to stop. So you could see that there's going to be a lot of individuals that are involved in all of this. And yes, they use the trans groups. Yes, they funnel money into the domestic terrorists. They've been doing this for a very, very long time. And this brings us to George Soros, because if you really think about it, this is what he's been doing this entire time. Think about it. He's been involved in bringing all these illegals into this country. He's helped pay for all of this. It's not just here in the United States. It's across the world. Everyone's doing the same thing. The UK is doing the same thing. France is doing the same thing. Germany's doing the same thing. Italy is doing the same thing. Well, they're putting a stop to it. And you can see now Japan is doing the same thing. And the people in Japan, well, they're already starting to protest, saying, no, we don't like what's going on. But what's very interesting is that Capital Research Group, they found out that, yes, Soros, they've given 80 million to pro-terror groups. I think it's a lot more than that, but let's go with 80 million. And this is what they put out. Since 2016, George Soros Open Society Foundation, now run with his son Alexander, has poured over 80 million into groups tied to terrorism or extremist violence. The evidence is stark. Open Society has sent millions of dollars into U.S.-based organizations that engage in direct actions that the FBI defines as domestic terrorism. These groups include the Center for Third World Organizing and its militant partner, Ruckus Society, which trained activists in property destruction and sabotage during the 2020 riots, and the Sunrise Movement, which endorsed the Antifa-linked Stop Cop City campaign, in which activists currently face over 40 domestic terrorism charges and 60 racketeering indictments. At the same time, Open Society awarded $18 million to the Movement for Black Lives Matter, a group that co-authored a radical guide that glorifies Hamas's October 7th massacre and instructs activists in the use of false IDs, blockades, and economic disruptions. Nor is the danger confined to America's streets. Open Society has funneled more than $2.3 million into Al-Haq, a non-governmental organization, NGO, based in the West Bank, and long accused of ties to the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which the European Union and the United States designate as a foreign terrorist organization. Grants to al-Haq between 2016 and 2023 range from $400,000 in general support to an $800,000 institutional award. In September 2025, the U.S. State Department sanctioned al-Haq, citing its role in advancing campaigns that directly engage in the International Criminal Court's illegitimate targeting of Israel. That means Soros Foundation has not only financed extremist groups within the United States, but also funneled millions abroad to entities now formally sanctioned by Washington. Where do you think all these terrorist groups in the Middle East, where do you think they're getting their funding? It's coming from, of course, George Soros, the deep state players, to push their agenda. This is what they've been doing this entire time. They are the funders of all this. Where are they getting the money? You think they're taking it out of their own pockets? No, they're taking it from the people of this country. Remember, there's an open-ended credit card. It's called the Federal Reserve. They have unlimited supply of currency. All they have to do is say, how much do you want? And they push a button. There's no work. There's no digging. There's no mining. It just creates it out of thin air. And then all the individuals in Congress, all they have to do is say, okay, let's make up a couple of these different programs, and we will shift the money into these programs. They'll get 10% or maybe 5%. And the other percentage will then be shipped over to NGOs. Those NGOs will then put it into other organizations, and it'll keep going. This is why it's so hard to track. And I do believe this is why Trump, right before Charlie was assassinated. Now, of course, this has nothing to do with Charlie, but I'm just saying he did this way before this because he was starting out saying, okay, since we know now that this money is laundered, let's now track down every single NGO and let's see where the money ends up. Now, they're investigating, because of everything that has happened, all these different groups and all these people that are involved. And you know what's going to happen? That investigation and the FBI investigation, they're going to find out that all of these groups are pretty much the same. And this is going to be a complete and utter disaster for the deep state players. And you can see that the people of this country, they're very worried that there's going to be more violence in this country. Now, I do believe that as we get closer and closer to the midterms, and as Trump continually strips away the ability for the deep state players to cheat in the elections, I think what the deep state players are going to do is say, okay, since we can't use a mail-in ballot, since we don't have the Social Security numbers, since we don't have the dirty voter rolls, since we don't have the cheating system like we had before, we're going to have to maybe try to keep people away from the voting. Let me ask you a simple question. Do you know that most methylene blue being sold online is the same grade used in fish tanks? Watch out for low-quality bottles that are untested for heavy metals and made overseas. You can trust the wellness company's Recharge, a doctor-formulated supplement, combined powder methylene blue with NAD+ and PQQ. This methylene blue is USP grade, ensuring top-tier purity for maximum safety and effectiveness. This is not the sketchy stuff you'll find on Amazon. Recharge is formulated with research-backed ingredients to optimize brain function and cellular repair while supporting clean, lasting energy. Tap into cognitive metabolic support that helps you stay energized, focused, and resilient all day long. Choose a trusted formula made for your body, not for fish tanks. Feel the difference with enhanced mental clarity, sustained energy, sharper focus, and protection against cognitive decline. And no, it won't turn your tongue blue. Head to twchealth.com/X22 and use code X22 to get 10% off plus free shipping. Again, that is twc.health/X22 and use code X22 to get 10% off, or just click the link in the description. Centers. Because Trump is making it where the only place you can actually vote is the voting centers. That doesn't mean that there won't be other places in other states, but the majority is going to be at voting centers. So I do believe during the year of 2026, as we get closer and closer to the midterms, I do believe Antifa will be used to shut this down. Now, once again, if you look at what Trump is doing, he is now pre-positioning the National Guard and setting them up in front of certain federal buildings. Now, if there's an election center, do you think the NGO, the National Guard, can actually be shifted over to the voting centers? I do believe so. So think about what Trump is doing right now, and he's doing it on purpose. But actually, Rasmussen reports they did a poll, and they asked a question. Actually, they asked a couple of questions. So basically, here are the questions that they asked in their survey. How concerned are you about political violence in America? The second question is, recently a gunman in Utah shot and killed a conservative activist, Charlie Kirk. How likely is that there will be more political violence in the next few months? Question number 3, which is more to blame for incidents like the recent shooting in Utah? Heated political rhetoric, the availability of firearms, or mental illness? Do you agree or disagree with the statement? It's long past the time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequences of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. So let's take the first question. How concerned are you about political violence in America? Question 1, 92% of Dems are concerned. Question 2, a gunman in Utah shot and killed a conservative. Do you believe there's going to be more violence in the next few months? Question number 2, 87% of Democrats say more violence is likely. Question number 3, which is more to blame for incidents that like the recent shooting in Utah, heated political rhetoric, the availability of firearms, or mental illness? So this is what they answered. 41% of Dems blame heated political rhetoric. Think of that. This is just the Dems. You know what the Republicans voted for. So I'm just doing the Dems. Number 4, do you agree or disagree with the statement? It's long past time for Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those for whom you disagree day after day. Well, 87% of Dems agree with Trump about media demonization. So right there, when you look at this, you could see that the Dems are actually siding with Trump. This is not going the way the deep state players want it. It's actually going the opposite way. And think about it. Think about the younger generation. They are now speaking out. I mean, they're screaming on the top of their lungs. How do we know this? Well, just the other day we mentioned, 2 numbers. And since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, there were 32,000 chapter requests. We are now up to 54,000 requests from high schools and colleges across the country. Are the children of this country now screaming on the top of their lungs, enough is enough? We need to get back to basics. And it seems that way, which means the deep state players, the Ds, they're losing the young. Now, of course, when you look at the fake news, when you look at social media, yes, people are pointing out certain individuals from the far left, and you can see them, destroying the different memorials that are set up and things like that. But you have to remember, this is the minority that you're looking at. When you looked at what Charlie Kirk did and he was at a campus, you could see the majority of the students, they were with him. And the minority now, they're losing their grip. Remember, during the Biden administration, they made you think, and it seemed like they were the powerful because everyone was on board. The leaders of the fake news, those reporters, the CEOs, the individuals who ran the sport organizations, it seemed like, wow, the country is with them, but they never were. They had to basically take over the leadership roles, force them to doing these things, or maybe some of them went on their own, and it made it look like everybody was on board until the American people started to reject it and started to speak out about it. This is why Cracker Barrel, Bud Light, Target, this is why they had a very difficult time pushing their agenda, because what it seemed like that, wait, America's with us, we could put this in our stores, we could do this is going to be great. What they realized is that America is not with them. They never were. And America is actually against them. And I think they started to learn this later on, because I do believe they thought America was totally with them. And they hired certain individuals where they believed that America was with them. But they don't understand America. And America was never with them. And they use the fake news. They use YouTube and Facebook because they were all on board with this. And you could see that the people of this country, they actually did the opposite of what they thought was going to happen. And this is going to continually happen every step of the way, as we move forward. And this is why Trump wants to shut down Voice of America. Remember when he put this out back in June of 2025? Why would a Republican want Democrat mouthpiece, Voice of America, to continue? It's a total left-wing disaster. No Republican should vote for its survival. Kill it. Kari Lake responded to this and said, at one point, Voice of America was effective, but corrupt politicians and DC swamp creatures outsourced everything to an even more corrupt grantee system, i.e. Radio Free Europe, Radio Free Asia, and the Middle East Broadcasting Network, who offer no transparency and massive mismanagement and self-dealing. It's hard to believe that some of those corrupt people are still in the government pushing to keep that grantee system alive. President Trump understands what's going on, and he supports our efforts to root out the corruption. And they developed this Voice of America on purpose to be the mouthpiece of the deep state players. They were pushing the propaganda here in this country. And yes, it spread around the world. And we know this from the Smith-Mundt Act. So right there, you could see from the very, very beginning, especially when Obama came into office, and this is when a lot of it started. I'm not saying this is when it began, but he actually pushed it to the next level. And I think people now understand this. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that Trump, he now has American companies that are going to control 80% stake of TikTok. And this is Oracle, Silver Lake, and Andreessen Horowitz. They're part of this consortium to actually control TikTok right now. And you have to remember, Trump and the Patriots right now, they use TikTok to reach the young. And I do believe that this is going to continually be used to reach the young, to actually show the young that no, what the D's are doing right now is not what you want. And you can see that Trump is definitely winning them over in all of this. And once again, are these individuals going to censor people? Are they going to shut people down? I don't believe so. Now, people might have a different opinion, but I think they're going to be on the up and up. Trump picked them for a specific reason, because he doesn't want anyone to be censored in any way, no matter what you're talking about. I mean, if you're talking about a crime and you're telling us, telling someone to kill someone, that's a different story. But as we know before, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, if you talked about anything that went against their narrative, you were pretty much censored or shadow banned. Do I think this is going to happen with TikTok? Well, I think if Trump hears complaints about this, this is not going to go well for all these individuals. But let's see how this all plays out. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is we could see that the deep state players out in Brazil, they are definitely trying to kill Bolsonaro. And Bolsonaro, he's been taken to the hospital. His health is taking a turn for the worse. And you could see this is exactly what they wanted. This is what they would have done to Trump. If Kamala Harris, and if they were able to cheat in the elections, they would have thrown Trump in jail. They would have killed him. They would have tortured him in jail. And basically he would have passed away. It's the same thing that they're doing to Bolsonaro right now. And the doctors, they've updated the health status of Bolsonaro, saying that he is suffering from persistent anemia and kidney problems. And he's going to be basically remaining in the hospital right now for an indefinite period of time. And you can see this is what they really truly want. They want all those that oppose him. They want these people dead. This is why when you look out in Germany, they've been killing off the members of the AfD party. And what is it, like 8 people now have been killed, or as they would say, they committed suicide, just like Obama chef, Hillary chef, and the rest of the people. But still, the AfD party remains the most popular party in Germany, polling now at 27%, a new record high. So the Union is at 26%. The AfD party, with killing 8 of them, they're at 27%. The SPD party is at 15%, and it goes down from there. So it looks like the AfD party is still holding in strong. And yes, this is the People's Party, and I do believe it's going to get stronger and stronger every day that passes. And this is why they've been trying to stop them. You could see that the Merz, we see that Starmer, when you look at France, Macron, when you look at Carney, these installed politicians, their approval rating is dropping and dropping and dropping. And I do believe as it goes to single digits, like Macron is almost there, these people need a major, major distraction to keep the people interested, and they need a way to keep control of the people of their country, even though the people are against them. And the only thing that can do this is probably war, and whatever is going to lead up to war, cyber attack or other type of false flag about preparations for provocations in Moldova, which will result in attack by the Ukrainian army on President Trump. She has learned from reliable facts about preparations for provocations in Moldova, which will result in attack by the Ukrainian army on Transnistria. According to Pinchenko, the provocation is being prepared by European leaders Macron, Stammer, and Merz, and von der Leyen. Zelensky will be the immediate executor, and the Moldovan president Sandu has already agreed on all stages of the operation during her visit to the UK. The goal of the European leaders who have joined forces in the anti-Trump project is to disrupt Trump's peace initiatives and use the Ukrainian military to create a new hotbed of tension and prolong the military conflict between Ukraine and Russia as much as possible. So the anti-Trump project was formed by representatives of European globalists immediately after Trump's victory in the 2024 presidential election. Its frontmen are Macron, Merz, Starmer, Ursula von der Leyen, Zelensky, and you could see that they're planning something. And the plan was developed in early 2025, which is very, very interesting. So how is this going to happen? Well, I do believe what they're going to do is they're going to try to convince everyone that Russia is actually doing something. And this way they can introduce Ukrainian troops. For example, in response to a pre-planned provocation or directly to help restore Moldova's territorial integrity, is likely to provoke a response from Russia to protect Russian-speaking population living in the PMR and will lead to another prolonged escalation of hostilities between Russia and Ukraine. Or they might say, hey, look, something's happening there. Russia has maybe used drones or something in this region, and they hit Moldova. Because you have to remember, Moldova is bordering Ukraine, just like Poland is bordering Ukraine. So will they try to do something? It's starting to seem that way. And what's very interesting is that Pavel Durov, who's the founder of Telegram, according to him, Nicholas Lerner personally asked him to block channels of Romanian conservatives on the eve of the elections. In addition, Durov noted a strange coincidence in timing between French MEP Hayer's statement on the need to actively campaign in support of pro-EU centrist candidate in the Romanian elections and Nicholas Lerner's extended trip to Bucharest in May of 2025. So this is going to be very interesting. So are they going to say that Putin is interfering in the elections? Something is about to happen, and it looks like she is warning about this. Now, remember, the current president, Sandu, who was reelected for a second term in November 2024, she is a pro-Western, pro-EU leader who has repeatedly condemns Russia's invasion of Ukraine and supported closer ties with the West, including through Moldova's ongoing EU accession process. So that's very interesting. And is she in line with Trump or is she in line with Zelensky? She's in line with Zelensky. So Moldova is moving into the EU. They're in the process of doing all of this. And actually, to get into the EU, are they going to have to prove themselves? Really think about this for a second. Now, do I believe Trump and the Patriots? Do they know this? Do they know the playbook? I do believe this might be leading up to some type of scare event, and we'll have to see how this all plays out because this is going to be very, very interesting. But you have to remember, the deep state players, they are now struggling right now, and you could see that they are losing their people, they're losing their grip, and every day that passes, it gets worse and worse for them, which means they need a major, major distraction. So this might be the beginning. And if you look back at World War I and World War II, you could see how war is kicked off. And I do believe that if it's not this, they will try something else. But let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that they had the former CDC director in front of Congress, and basically they Congress was the Republicans, they were destroying her. And you could see that basically when you watch her actions, you could see that she's a liar. Actually, at one point, we had Mark Wade Mullen questioning her, saying, listen, tell the truth, tell the truth. We got this recorded. And you could see that she just didn't want to tell the truth. And she's totally a liar. And she had two lawyers behind her, Mark Zaid and another lawyer, passing her notes, telling her what to say. And Mark Zaid, he was one of the lawyers that headed up the impeachment of President Trump. So I think this tells you everything you need to know. And yes, there were other individuals questioning her about COVID, child vaccinations. Basically, she was there to basically protect Big Pharma. And since RFK Jr. came in and started to change things around, this is when everything started to fall apart for her. And this is when she started to push back. And this is when RFK said, listen, we've had enough and we need to get rid of you. And you can see this is why she's now pissed and angry, because Big Pharma is telling her, sue, we'll pay for it. Go after them. But again, she's not going to win. Big Pharma is not going to win. And what's very interesting, the D's, it seems like they always seem to trap themselves in certain things. And Harino pretty much trapped herself in a question that she asked Kash Patel. Greg Price put this out and said, and this is what Harino said, you are requiring applicants to be able to do a certain kind of pull-up, which a lot of women cannot because of physiological differences. Kash says, if you want to chase down a bad guy and put him in handcuffs, you better be able to do a pull-up. And he's right. If you're going to chase down a criminal, and remember, whether the criminals on drugs, you need the strength. And women are definitely different than men. Thank you for proving it. So think about what she just said, that whole entire gender thing out the window. She just proved that there's physiological differences between men and women. Thank you. The D's always step in it. It's absolutely unbelievable. And you can see at this point, Trump is already now investing in charter schools to allow parents to make a choice of where they want their child to be educated. So he is now investing $60 million in charter schools, which means the money is going to follow the child. And if these schools want to go down the path of wokeism, they're going to lose all of these children, which means they will not be competitive, which means they will not get any funding. If they're not getting funding, they can't pay for the teachers. If they can't pay for the teachers, well, they have no students. So basically, they're going to be in a tight position. And I think he's going to expand this quite a bit. And this is going to help the children of this country. Also, the new investments also include $137 million to promote civics, education, and history, a one-time $500 million investment in tribal colleges and historically black colleges and universities. So this is going to be very, very interesting moving forward. And let's see how this all plays out, because I do believe the education system is completely and utterly about to change. And you know what else is happening? And you know what else is about to change? Everything that has to do with Letitia James, because they got her on mortgage fraud, and now it seems that she has violated New York's stabilization laws. So New York State Attorney Letitia James, or Peekaboo James as Trump would call her, long claiming to be a public champion of tenants' rights, has herself been in violation of New York City's rent stabilization laws for more than 2 decades. Since purchasing a 4-story apartment building at 296 Lafayette Avenue in Brooklyn in 2001, James has failed to register the property with the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal as required for rent stabilizing buildings. By failing to register, she denied her tenants the protection of rent stabilization while collecting rents above the legally regulated amounts for 24 years. New York City's housing code is based on its rent stabilization law of 1969, which was designed to shield tenants from large rent raises, unlawful deregulation, and eviction abuses. So this is very, very interesting, and now she's caught in all of this. And it's getting worse and worse every day that passes. And we can actually see why crime in D.C. was so bad. Yes, we know the mayor didn't do anything. We know the D's, they love releasing the criminals. But the other thing that's very interesting is that, and Steve Miller put this out, that in D.C., career criminals age 24 are tried as minors and released to serially reoffend. 178 House Democrats said these adults should be free to continue battering innocent residents and tourists. What minor is 24 years old? So if that's the case, anyone below that doesn't have to serve in the military or be drafted. I mean, really think about this for a second. So you're saying the 18-year-olds, the 19-year-olds, the 20 years old? So which is it? And once again, they did this on purpose. Why? Because they wanted these people on the streets. They wanted the crime. They wanted to keep them there because there's many different agendas associated with all this. But you can see right now, and Representative James Comer put this out, the House now is moving to reinforce Trump's fight against lawlessness in D.C. by advancing comprehensive legislation. And it looks like they're going to vote on this. They're going to keep the Capitol safe. And once again, Trump doesn't really need permission to keep the National Guard there. But again, it'd be nice if Congress backed him up, which they are doing. And it looks like they're going to be voting on this, and hopefully it goes through. Now, the other thing that we could see is that Kash Patel, he's been testifying in front of Congress, and he's been destroying them left and right. And during one of the questions by McBath, she said that Kash is not doing his job. He's making America less safe under the FBI. And Kash responded, well, if we're failing, how are we arresting 23,000 violent felons? 2 times as many as this time last year. How are we seizing 1,500 kilograms of meth, 25% increase from last year? We captured 4 top 10 FBI most wanted from around the world in 7 months. That's more than the entirety of the last administration. We put 1,500 child predators in prison. We dismantled 300 human trafficking networks. So which is it? You don't like me? That's fine. But don't you dare disparage the men and women of the FBI that are producing record results in historic fashion to protect this country. They are kicking ass for America, and they're going to continue to do so. So that is absolutely fantastic the way he approached this. He used statistical facts. And by doing this, how are they going to argue with this? You see, at this point, Kash has all the leverage. Remember, they're the criminals that are sitting there. The previous administration, the previous FBI directors, they have done absolutely nothing. They were there to protect the criminals. This is why they have done absolutely nothing for years, which means anything that Kash does right now will outshine what they have done. And you know what the American people will see? They will see that, wait a minute, he's doing quite a bit. A lot more than Wray, a lot more than Comey, a lot more than Mueller, a lot more than all of these people. What were they doing this entire time? Think about that for a second. What were they doing this entire time? Because if Kash, in the first 8 months or so, can do all of this, what did they do over the 4 years or 8 years that they were there? Well, I think we're going to find out that answer. I think that we're going to find out that this had nothing to do with them actually fighting the actual criminals. What they were really doing, they were protecting the criminal syndicate. And from all of this, what we've come to find out is that Jack Smith and the Biden regime, along with Obama, they were targeting Turning Point, and they tried to force Charlie and many other people and movements out of business. That's very interesting. Would this be a motive to get rid of Charlie? Maybe. Trump, he put this out and said the following. Why was the wonderful Turning Point under investigation by deranged Jack Smith and the corrupt and incompetent Biden administration? They tried to force Charlie and many other people and movements out of business. They weaponized the Justice Department against sleepy Joe Biden's political opponents, including me. They allowed the daughter of a judge on one of the corrupt trials against me to become the biggest fundraiser for Biden and Kamala, making many millions of dollars for herself and her family. But with her father, the judge, not only refusing to recuse himself, but putting a gag order on me, not allowing any talk about their family corruption and unprecedented conflict of interest. Every leading legal analyst and pundit said this trial was wrong and should not have been allowed to go forward. But it did because of a corrupt judge who will hopefully pay a very big price for his illegal actions someday. So think about it. They were going after Trump. They were going after Turning Point. They were going after many Republicans. They tried to assassinate Trump, and they actually succeeded in assassinating Charlie Kirk. I wonder who's behind all this. Think about it. But what's very interesting, and Eric Doherty put this out, the state of Florida is launching an investigation and issuing subpoenas to former Biden officials who targeted Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA and other conservative groups following the revelation that Democrats' Arctic Frost program wrongfully targeted them. Time for accountability. Let's see how this all plays out. Now, think about it. Why Kash is now answering questions in front of Congress. There's stories going around from an unknown source, as usual, saying that Bongino, once again, is on his way out. So this is very, very interesting. So Kash is testifying in front of Congress, and here we have anonymous sources saying that Bongino is on his way out. Does that make any sense? Are they trying to break up the FBI somehow, some way? Are they trying to push their agenda? Now, once again, maybe Bongino wants to go back to his podcast. But again, he knew what this entailed. He knew the sacrifices that he was going to have to make. And wasn't this his lifelong dream, to go and stop the criminals? Didn't he want to help out America? And from his posts on X, it seems like he's assisting and he's doing a great job. So let's see if Bongino leaves in 2 weeks, because it's very, very interesting that this news story from anonymous sources once again came out while Kash was testifying in front of Congress. And we've seen this story before. Remember when they said, he took a little bit of leave of absence and probably went to see his family? They said he's on his way out, but then he came back. So this is very, very interesting. And he's been posting how many criminals they've been capturing. So let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that Kash, he has now confirmed that the FBI is using the recently declassified annex from the Durham report as part of an ongoing investigation. Storm has arrived, put this out and said, that case, and this is coming from Kash, that case is very much ongoing, so I can't comment on the stylization of the evidence we're collecting. Again, I'm not going to characterize that the material because it's part of an ongoing investigation. I personally can't wait until the investigation is over and the indictments are dropped. I agree with that. And you can see every step of the way, what's happening right now is Kash is letting them know that investigations are going on. And since the investigations are going on, they can't produce certain information. Now, isn't this what the deep state players used every single time when the Republicans were asking for certain information? But the difference is they weren't doing any type of investigation. Kash and team, they're actually doing the investigation, and they're going to continually release the information to the public. Storm has arrived once again, says Kash Patel confirms that we can expect to see more declassification efforts regarding the Crossfire Hurricane and Russia collusion hoax. And this is definitely what we're going to see. Now, what's very interesting, and I just like what Dan Scavino said here. Remember when Kash Patel was arguing with Pencil Neck, which is Adam Schiff? Well, it seems Dan Scavino decided to respond to Adam Schiff. And it says, in all fairness, you were destroyed today, all while being a sitting U.S. Senator who begged for a preemptive pardon via an auto pen. Why did you need a pardon so badly? The American people deserve answers. And he's absolutely right. And you can see that all these Ds that are testifying in Congress, asking Kash questions, Kash is hitting them left and right. He knows they're the criminals. He knows who he's talking to. That's why he's responding like this, because he knows every single one of these people, they are treasonous to this country. And he's calling them out on this, and he's provoking them. And you could see how panicked they really are. Now, Trump, he is in the UK right now, and he received, and this is coming from Eric Doherty, received a massive royal reception for his historic second state visit to the UK. And you could see that the UK now is rolling out the red carpet for him. And what's very interesting, and we saw this with the Queen of England, Trump, he was inspecting the guard at Windsor Castle. Now, he was leading the inspection. The king was behind him, just like when he was with the queen. She was behind him. And this is tradition. Yes, it's tradition. Basically, this is the general royal protocol. In most ceremonial contexts, the monarch leads. Guests, whether president or prime minister, do not walk ahead of the sovereign. This is tied to the principle that the monarch is the host and the guest follows their lead. The guard of honor exception. When it comes to inspecting the guard of honor during a state visit, the tradition is slightly different. The guest of honor is the one formally inspecting the troops. The monarch accompanies them but does not conduct the inspection themselves. In that specific setting, it is normal for the visiting head of state to take the lead, sometimes walking slightly ahead because it is their role to review the guard. And this is what happened during the visit with Queen Elizabeth back in 2018. And this is what's happening right now. And that is the reason why this is happening. And we can see that this is a tradition that they've been following for a very, very long time. It's not because the king and queen bowed to him and he's in control. He is in control, but this is their tradition. This is what has always happened there. Now, the other thing that we could see is that there's going to be a memorial in Arizona. And we're seeing that there's going to be a lot of people in attendance. Erica Kirk, of course. Trump is going to be there. Vance is going to be there. Gabbert's going to be there. RFK Jr., Pete Hegseth, Steve Miller, Tucker Carlson, and many, many others. Cynical Publius says, please be careful with all those heroes in one place at the same time. Maybe Vance should stay in D.C. and give his remarks remotely. And it is a little troubling that all these individuals are going to be in one stadium. And it's kind of scary that everyone's going to be there. And yes, Marco Rubio is going to be there. Kennedy's going to be there, and many others. And there's a lot of people in one place. So hopefully security is taken to the next level. And they need to have drones all over the place. They need to make sure that everything is covered. And what's very interesting is you could see why Trump, he had to navigate the entire swamp from the very, very beginning. And I think Clandestine pretty much lays this out beautifully. He says, I think this tragedy shows why Trump has to navigate this entire swamp draining process very, very carefully. Trump has to account for the millions of brainwashed left-wingers who truly believe he's Hitler and that we are all Nazis. The situation is delicate. Scalpel over hammer. Trump has to go about doing what is necessary while not causing widespread panic. Trump must ensure a large enough percentage of the public are aware of what is going on before he arrests the treasonous rats. Otherwise, we risk causing mass chaos and widespread civilian casualties and potentially catastrophic scenarios. The problem is, large portions of the public are literally brainwashed by the same people who are guilty of the treasonous conspiracy against Trump. How do you tell hundreds of millions of people that everything they know is a lie and the people they have been conditioned to trust are actually the most evil beings to ever walk the earth? This must be done surgically and methodically, and that's absolutely true. And you can see this is why we have been taking down this path. And I do believe that in the end, the people are going to see who the true enemy is. Now, there is something else that is absolutely crazy that happened. Air traffic control, and Libs of TikTok put this out, had to tell a Spirit pilot 4 times to turn because they were too close to Air Force One when Trump was flying to the UK. And they said, Air Force One, I got to talk to you twice every time. Pay attention. Get off the iPad. Who was flying this plane? And were they testing something? Because once again, were they trying to hit Air Force One with the passengers on there? Were they trying to do something? Or was this just normal mistake? They just didn't know where they're going. But again, air traffic control was telling them over and over and over. What were they doing? Did they have control of the plane? This is very, very odd. And I think we need to keep an eye on all of this, and they need to inspect why this actually happened. Maybe we'll find out later of why they decided to get so close and why they weren't responding. Let's see how, maybe it's a DEI pilot. I don't know. But let's see how this all plays out. But what we do know is we could see the deep state players, they are now panicking, and there are multiple investigations going on. And we can see that now the deep state players, they're going to try to bring us down to a path of war. But I do believe this is going to wake the American people up, and not just the people of America, but it's going to wake the people of the world up. And Trump is going to come out as the peacemaker. And people are starting to learn, and I think a lot of people already know this, but I think a lot don't. Soros is behind all these terrorist organizations. Remember, they've called MAGA, the Republicans, fascists, extremists. It's actually them, and they have been paying for it. And I do believe in the end, all of this is going to come out, and the people are going to see the truth. Why? Because the patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.